This show is sponsored by Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today is the founder and CEO of SalesX, an agency that helps companies develop profitable customer acquisition programs via search marketing, display advertising, mobile marketing, analytics, and creative services. With 2 decades of experience in Silicon Valley, he has been privileged enough to help hundreds of businesses prosper and has mentored many entrepreneurs. That is why he started SalesX in 2010 to assist companies by providing them with SEM tools to reach the right people at the right time. Please welcome CEO and founder at SalesX, Joe Khoei. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate being here. I'm excited to have a chat with you today.
Yeah, as am I. This has been just such a incredible experience for me here doing this podcast. I've been fortunate enough to meet with so many different executives and community leaders and so many others, CEOs and everything. But the cool part that I'm touching on today is that you're in San Francisco. And I think that is so cool that we are just going from New York to San Francisco and having this conversation. So that's one of the cool things about meeting you today. The other one is your background and how you got started in bootstrapping this business of SalesX. And I say bootstrapping, and I'm not saying that lightly because I've heard a little bit about the story, but I'd be even more interested to hear it from you.
Gotcha. Yeah, career for about 10 years. I started doing sales at Oracle in their inside sales positions, and then just did a bunch of enterprise software sales. And after 10 years, I was really kind of tired of working for someone else. I always wanted to have my own business. And so I started SalesX. I left at the end of 2009. I left, went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, to learn how to surf, and then came back, started SalesX. And it was supposed to be a sales consulting company where I would help other companies, sales team, maybe start a CRM, get a list going, get their pitch going, get their collateral going, get it all going, and help them get some, deals in the funnel and so on. And what happened is the first half a dozen customers, I think the first handful, they all needed websites. Their websites were bad. This is in 2010. And so I was like, well, my formal education is in industrial engineering and MBA. So I'm like, okay, I'm an engineer. I worked in engineering. I could figure out how to do websites. I'll learn how to do WordPress and I'll do the websites. So I help them do the websites. Then they needed to do search engine optimization so that they could show up in the searches, the Google searches. So I'm like, okay, there's a document on Google called the Search Engine Optimization Starter Guide. They literally spell it out. Anybody that has that document, they know it's like a spec sheet from Google saying, do it like this. So I'm like, okay, I could do that for them. So I started doing that. Then they needed paid search. So I'm like, okay, I'll learn how to do that. So anyway, I had to shift the business 3 times in the first year just to hit where the market demand was. And so we ended up SalesX becoming an ad agency effectively instead of like a sales consulting company, which has actually turned out to be better because the ad agency is scalable and the sales consulting company would have had to, for the most part, depend on me for a much longer time before we could scale it. So then we ended up getting some accounts that were part of a franchise and they all needed the same thing. So our guys were doing like 30 different accounts. And I wanted to find someone that will help bring some automation. And I found Frederick Valles, who was at the time, he had left Google after 10 years. He was one of the early employees at Google. He had left Google for a couple of years and he had his own agency called Top Tier. And I hired Frederick because he was one of the handful of people in the world that knew about automation for Google Ads. And so we hired him and we paid him to bring some automation into SalesX. And then after 6 months, he ended up giving all of his accounts to us to manage for him, because he's like, oh, you guys have employees, they're coming in here every day. I'm having my accounts by contractors. They're not necessarily prioritizing me. I don't like that. You guys can manage the accounts. And then, of course, I'll oversee him. And then after that, he was having his first child. He has 3 now. And I said to him, Frederick, with your travel schedule, children, you're going to be super busy. So long story short, we ended up merging his company into SalesX, made him our CTO. And that gave us a really good platform for automation that eventually led to all the kind of the US search awards that we've won. We've won the US search awards 5 times, 3 times for best agency. We've also won it for best campaigns and best use of data. So SalesX became, really reputable over the years. We've managed. We're still a boutique agency. We're a small agency. We don't have a ton of accounts. Altogether, I think we have close to 22 accounts. So, but these accounts, they spend good amounts of money every month on Google Ads and also Facebook and Bing. And they need someone to make sure that they're getting their money's worth out of that investment. And we are that someone. So that's my professional side of the business. And then on the personal side, a kind of personality that when I do something, I get obsessed with it and I go, 10 miles deep. And that's effectively why SalesX was able to succeed, because when I first started it, I was like, what do I know about any of this stuff? So I signed up for this like online learning, Lynda, Lynda, online learning, where they do video learning. And I took course after course after course after course and got the certificate after certificate. And I was printing the certificates and putting them on the wall. I had this little 10 by 10 office. So when somebody would sit at my desk in front of me, they would look to their left and there would be like certificates from ceiling to floor on courses that I had completed on Lynda. So that gave me some credibility, but that transfers also into my personal life, where I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pretty regularly. I'm 53 and I do it 6 days a week, and that's really hardcore pace. I also do yoga. I try and do yoga 7 days a week as well. And, meditation, that kind of geeky stuff. Anything geeky, I suppose. I never thought I'd geek out on stuff so much, but that's what this kind of ever-changing advertising industry does to you. Because as soon as you try and get settled, boom, things are changed. Change. And now there's things that are even changing even more with this ChatGPT stuff. So keeps you sharp, always new synapses going off in your brain, and it's applicable. When your brain's working more, you can apply that to everything. It's not just the one thing.
That's awesome. There's a tremendous to unpack here. I mean, from the business to your personal, and then ChatGPT. I had a guest on recently, and I mentioned ChatGPT. I said we're going to talk about it, and when we didn't get to it. So I know we got to get to Chat GPT, so I want to make sure that I don't forget about that, because the rest of the stuff, there's no way we're not getting into what you've been doing at SalesX, and then of course some of the other stuff, especially meditation. As my audience knows, I'm big on meditating. I meditate every day. I think it's tremendous for everything that we do in terms of managing anxiety, in terms of growth, in terms of learning, everything that we do. It's just tremendous. So I want to go to ChatGPT so that we don't forget about it. And I know that you probably know a little bit about it, if not more than I'm ignorant to. So could you share a little bit about ChatGPT and how it's changing
I'll give
the
you a
industry?
brief summary. I'm not an expert because it's so new and it continually is getting updated and upgraded, and they're adding tools to it so that we could use it, like companies can use it, and it's not just a toy. Because when somebody goes through and uses a platform from the user interface, that's like a toy level usage, right? As an agency, we could never just go into Google Ads and change everything on the user interface. We would have, if we had the Red Army of China, it wouldn't be enough people to do that. So we have to go in from the back end and use tech to do all the stuff that we need to do directly into the Google servers. So ChatGPT, if you're just going and using it, it comes across as a toy. That's why like Microsoft is integrating it into their search engine and so on. But basically, it's changing the way business is being conducted in search, and the search, like the way people find stuff. You're probably old enough to remember pre-Google how we search for stuff, where you went into these other search engines, whether it was Yahoo or Alta Vista or Excite at Home or whatever the search engines were, and you would search for stuff, and the answers, they weren't really all that relevant, right? And that's why when Google came over, they started dominating because of the relevance. And then they've been dominating since 2002, since the early 2000s. So 20 years, Google has had this reign on search. And now the ability of search, right now we go to Google, we type something, right? What do we get? We get some ads. The first 4 links are ads. Maybe if that's not an advertising heavy keyword that we're looking at or search that we've done, maybe we get 2 or 3 ads, or maybe it's such an obscure thing that we don't get any ads. But for the most part, when you're looking for something, you get ads. So you have the 4 ads. Then if it's a local thing that you're looking at, you get the maps, right? You get the little jewel box under the maps with the 3 links of like that pop up there. And then you get the organic results. So in terms of usability, somebody has to look through the ads. If they don't recognize that that's an ad, they might click on it, or they might recognize that that is an ad and click on it. So that's one of two ways that can happen, or they could skip it. Then they go down to the organic search results, and the organic search results, it might be gamed to some degree. Somebody might have done a bunch of SEO or have done like clickbait stuff. You go to search for something and they're like the best 10 things and the best 5x and then, whatever it might be. So it might be gamed. So you might actually have to do a little bit of digging before you can find an answer. And it can be frustrating to do that. Now imagine if you just ask a verbal question from a system like ChatGPT and it just gives you the answer. So you're not going in there and looking at ads and not looking at links and looking at clickbait and maybe find the answer, maybe not find the answer, or maybe compile the answer from 10 different locations, right? Maybe run into a good one and 9 of them are garbage. Or maybe some of them have some information, but none of them have all the information together. There are all those things that are the search experience right now. That's why we're always in front of Google saying, okay, a lot of times you have to dig and dig and dig. But ChatGPT stands to change that. That's the beauty of it.
Wow. I
Chat
mean,
GPT can be like the Star Trek kind of computer where it's like computer, blah, blah, blah. And then it's giving you the legit answer. You can trust that that's a good answer. It's not just a gamed answer because it's taking information from all over the place and mashing it into an answer for you.
so a couple questions there. One, so then is ChatGPT, is that just like a program that any company can use? Can Google use ChatGPT? Can
So yeah, I mean, I'm not the world's. I'm not even any level of expert on that. But what I do know is that actually Google came up with that stuff
Oh, okay.
first. Before there was ever ChatGPT, Google had it. They're the ones that actually spend millions and millions on it.
And
But they
then
didn't want to unleash it, right? It's they have different reasons. They have their own reasons why they didn't want to unleash it. They say that it wasn't ready. There was potential for error, this and that. But the bottom line is it can hurt their business,
yeah. Yeah, I mean
right?
obviously, yeah.
Yeah. And now they're unleashing it. They're unleashing their own version of it. But yeah, Google is when this AI stuff started. This is where it started, to the best of my knowledge. And again,
Mm-mm.
my knowledge is extremely limited. Uh,
Hey, listen, I only found out about ChatGPT only a few weeks ago. And it was from somebody in their 60s. I was in a
yeah,
Toastmasters meeting. I'm a avid Toastmaster. I've been in it for about six
I love
years
it.
now. And are you as well?
Yeah, I did Toastmasters for 3 years when I was at Oracle.
Oh, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm still in it. I love my group, even though we're small. It's fantastic. But part of Table Topics,
Yeah.
Howie brought up ChatGPT, and when I said I don't know what it is, he goes, "Michael, of all the people, I would have never thought of
Right.
it." And I was like, yeah, man. So he put me onto it. And then it was funny. Like right after that, I had a guest come on and he had Chat GPT in his background, but I didn't bring it up. So that's why I was like, there's no way I'm forgetting to bring it up now. I am going to move on from there because I do want to go back to your story, your origin story, because I think you painted a wonderful picture of the growth of SalesX and how you went through the different journeys of pivoting as we've tend to use these days, but of changing what the business was, how it started, your original plan for it, and how you had to adapt to the needs of the clients. And I think you did a tremendous job in doing that. And then, of course, rolling into the partnership that later on created even bigger abundance for this company. And I think, again, another part that I want to unpack further in terms of partnership and in terms of investors. But just in this beginning stage, I remember hearing somewhere that when you first started SalesX, you went through a lot of pain and to the point where you were sleeping on the floor at your office. And, when I think about our audience here of entrepreneurs and business leaders and community leaders, and myself included, we've all been there, and maybe not to the same extent that you were at, but we've all been there, and some of us are still there. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that story and how you were able to climb your way out.
Yeah, sure. Well, the thing is, a lot of people gave me good advice. They said, look, if you want to do something, don't quit your job, start doing it first, and then start making some money there. And then once you've done that and it's successful, then quit your job and so on. But that's not my style. When I want to do something, I just dive in.
10
So,
miles deep.
and you know, that was a really tough start because it had a massive financial impact. My thinking was wrong because I was carrying these several $1 million quotas every year and hitting them, right? Whether I was at Oracle or whether I was at other software companies, I always carried these massive quotas. And my mentality at that time, which was wrong, but I still went with it, was that I don't need to actually bring in all this quota. I just need to bring in a fraction of it, and then my income will be like 4 times what it is. It wasn't quite that simple because obviously nobody had had heard about SalesX, right? We didn't have any brand recognition. Um, companies that ended with X didn't exist at the time. Now they're all over the place. Once SpaceX kind of caught on, then everybody else caught on with it too. But so I went from my income of kind of mid $100,000 range, upper, kind of closer to $200,000 range in 2009 to an income of like $7,000 in 2010, and like 15 grand in 2011, and 30 grand in 2012. So it was really, really tough to transition from making money to making no money at all, right? That's why I had to really learn everything fast and start executing. But it does really take 5 years. I mean, people were telling me, "Oh, it's going to take 5 years," and I was like, I'll do it in 3 months." And really, that's what I had, like 3 months reserves. And I'm like, that's enough. I'll make it work. And I was wrong. I was dead wrong about that because it took a lot longer. The other thing about it was that because I was doing it by myself, I didn't have any kind of a partner, and I've never had a partner. Frederick came in as our CTO, then he left to start Optimizer with two other co-founders, which is a Google Ads platform, management platform. But because I didn't have that, I had to do everything myself. So being in sales prior to this, I would just do the business, do the deal, get the PO, give a copy to the sales admin, give a copy to bookkeeping, accounting department, and give a copy to consulting department. And then I was off to the next deal. But once I started SalesX, I got that deal, and I'm like, okay, who's gonna do this work now? There's nobody there. So then I had to go and try and fish out people to do the work. And then if those people failed, then I had to do the work, right? I was the only person that I could rely on because, as Warren Buffett says, you have one reputation. It takes a lifetime to build it, and it takes 5 minutes to ruin it. So I was like, I can't let any of these clients down. I have to make sure they all succeed. So I had to do it myself. And so that's kind of what happened, where people that start, they're usually good at one aspect of the business, but not at all aspects of the business. For me, it was the sales aspect. Normally, when entrepreneurs start, they have some other aspect and they're lacking. Sometimes they're lacking the sales. They come from a production environment where they're really good at building something, coding something, creating something, but they suffer from the sales side of it. I had the other issue. I didn't have any problem selling stuff, but then executing on it was my difficulty. So it took a long time to learn it. So my deal sizes were tiny because I could not take on big deals. I didn't have the talent of Michael Dell to bring a massive deal and then learn how to code and code it himself. Which is how Michael Dell got started. But I just didn't have that kind of talent, so I had to kind of grind my fingers to the bone, so to speak, in order to get there. So for people that want to start and they're just starting now, it's a difficult kind of path for the first few years. But if they can stick it out, then the rewards are infinitely worth the difficulty that they had to endure. And a lot of times sticking it out means you have to work harder. You have to be more strategic about your moves. But then being more strategic doesn't mean that it gets easier. It just means that you're working harder and smarter, so to speak. I don't know if that's answering your question at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it was. You're talking about how it was tough in the beginning, and it took time, and you certainly shared several mistakes that you made along the way, and I know that we're learning from those mistakes on the other end. Whoever's listening, I know that I've had that very similar experience. I started Den10. That's the shirt that I'm wearing here, our insurance company. And I was very similar to you. I wasn't making the mid six figures, but I was making six figures. And I had the very same mindset as you in that I said, I'm going to quit this job and start my insurance agency. Now, part of the reason why I needed to quit was because it's a conflict of interest. I was working for another insurance agency at the time. So that's part of the reason. But I didn't save up a year, 2 years worth of income in order to start my agency. I saved up enough to pay off any credit card debts that I had previously from running the other business that I have, which is the one that we're on right now, Michael Esposito Inc. And pay off that debt, and then just have enough runway for 2 or 3 months, and that was it. And then hit the ground running, and was in a very similar position. And I'm only in year 2. So I'm in that 2013 phase of your life, and I don't even think I'm making that much, to be honest. So I appreciate you sharing that mistake, and I'm sharing it too with our audience here, is that I'm living that mistake. And so important for everybody to learn, in that if you're going to start a business, make sure you have the financial capabilities to last it out. Because the next question I have for you to follow this all up is about the mindset, because you did talk about sticking it out. And I mean, that's what I'm experiencing, is sticking it out and working through the difficulties and the challenges, and 100% like what you just said there. To add to it is, I worked for a big insurance agency. And all I had to do was go out and get the big deal, get the big fish. And and then, exactly to your point, they go to the markets, they go to the quoting, they do all the work, and I just go out and get another big fish. Whereas now, that's not the case. I mean, I have a great team where we can go out, but I can't get the big fish that I want to get. Where I want to get these big ones, because as you and I both know, the amount of work that we do for the smaller ones is very similar to the amount of work that we do for the bigger ones. Yeah. But you got to have the support team to back the bigger ones, which is the difference in terms of sales. So I want to just go back to mindset, and what was the mindset that you created for yourself during those lean years?
So the thing was that I come from a martial arts background. And when I was a kid, I took a little bit of martial arts, but then in my 20s, I really got hardcore into it. I signed up for this temple. They were doing 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, yoga and martial arts. They were breaking it up between yoga and karate, 2 hours in the morning and then 2 hours at night. So 4 hours a day. And it was tough. It was really, really, really tough. 4 hours a day, and you're 19 years old and you're doing all this yoga and martial arts. And I continued that, not with the temple. I moved on. I did Shotokan for 11 years, and then I did other martial arts, and then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But all of that stuff, it basically teaches you how to have a really tough mind, focused mind. Right? You can't give up easily, because all of it is hard, whether it's yoga, whether it's martial arts, or whether it's meditation. If you don't have a focused mind, you're not going to last. So you have to be able to focus your mind, and you have to endure under pressure. Right? So in a way, I had that resilience built into me from all those years of doing martial arts, where I didn't panic, and I didn't really care. If I had a hard time, I was like, just let it roll off my back. And a lot of people, they both hate me and love me for that. Not hate, but they both say, well, not everybody's like you, and then they're like, oh, we wish we could be more like you, like my family especially, where I don't let things just be more than they are. Like, if you're not succeeding, you're not succeeding. Just keep going and you will succeed. As long as you have a vision, you drive towards it, you're going to go through some difficulties. but you just keep your nose to the grindstone and you will succeed. Now, the other thing that I was fortunate to do is that I had family members that wanted to pay some money and invest. They're like, we can give you some money, how much money you need, and we'll take shares in the business. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take anybody's money because I didn't even know if I was going to succeed, right? I don't want to have the family's money and then fail and then not be able to pay them back. So I kept saying, no, 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 I don't want any money. I'm just going to do it myself. And then if I need money, I'll get it from you later. And I was able to do the same things. It was like, they're like, okay, if I give you $100,000, what can you do with it? And I was like, making a list of stuff I could do with the 100,000. And then a year later, I had done all this stuff without the 100,000. So sometimes we feel that, oh, we need the money to do something, but we can do it. There's more than one way to kind of reach the top of the mountain. There's more than one path. Some of the paths are more difficult, some of them are easier, but delaying getting money is always the best. And even eventually when I had like 3 or 4 people and I needed to hire more people and I didn't have the cash flow to pay for their payroll, this is like in 2015, I want to say, it's 5 years in. I finally I got like 100,000 from my mom and I got 60,000 from my sister, but I didn't give them any shares. I took it as a loan with interest, simple interest, not, compound interest, obviously, but simple interest loans. I gave them a really high interest rate that was way more than they could get in a savings account, for example, or anything like that, or even a typical safe investment. And then I paid those payments, and then I paid them their money. So I grew one division of SalesX that was handling those franchise organizations. We called it a different name, called it Care Marketer. And we had about 80 accounts. There were these home instead senior care, in-home care agencies for the elderly. And I carved out that division and I sold that and I paid off all that debt and all of my personal debt and all of SalesX's debt, everything with that money. And we were since 2017, when that happened, end of 2017, we've been, knock on wood, completely free of debt. But I still own like 96% of SalesX just because the other 4%, some of it went to Frederick and some of it went to my top guy at SalesX right now, and who's been with me for about 9 years. So I was very hesitant to take money because I didn't want to take it unless I knew for sure I'm going to succeed. Of course, you never know anything for sure, right? Whenever I say something definite, what I really mean is like 96%, because I take the 80-20 rule and I take the 20% and I apply the 80-20 rule to it again. So then it becomes 20% of 20% is 4%. So it's a 96-4. So even if I'm saying with 100% certainty, what I really mean is with 96% certainty, because there's always, something that could happen. But I was really, really confident that I could pay back the money and that we were going to grow and it was going to happen when I took the money, because who was offering the money? It was my mom and my sister. I don't want to just take their money and not be able to pay them back. That's like, how would I ever, lift my head after that? So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, living in your integrity was very important, and obviously is very important to you. It's interesting how things kind of work out in the days that we're in today. So every day I do a Instagram live. Every morning I do an Instagram live, and I've been doing it for quite some time now. And I always go on to hopefully inspire and help my audience grow in terms of self-development growth and to give back to them. And so a lot of what I share with them comes out of my own experiences and comes out of different things that happen in our lives or in my life, right? And what's interesting about what you just shared in terms of that mindset and how you related it to martial arts is I just completed a 48-day fast. And
Nice.
I'm sure you're very familiar, right? And the reason why I'm doing these fasts, and I've been doing intermittent fasting now since June, and then I moved into a 24-hour, and then I just, like I said, completed the 48. And many people think it's for weight loss, but I never had an issue with weight. It wasn't really for weight loss. There's some weight loss factor in it because I consider myself an athlete. I play basketball very regularly, and I want to always stay in shape and be able to be physical and fast and jump high and all the rest. But really, it had to do with the challenge, with challenging myself and putting myself through a state of challenge. And when I completed the 48 hours yesterday on my live this morning, that's what I was talking about how we do these different things in life to challenge ourselves so that it can help us in other things that we're trying to accomplish. Because by challenging myself to not eat for 48 hours, that doesn't, you don't see the direct correlation to that in business or to that in Den10, our insurance company. But what it does is it teaches me, it trains my body, mind, and spirit and conditions it to, I can overcome hard things. I can overcome challenges, right? It's like, and the neural pathways that I think you had mentioned earlier on, right? It develops these new neural pathways and synapses that change everything in my brain. To be able to advance. So I love that you brought up martial arts when I asked you about the mindset, because it's like, yes, it's so many people don't realize how important the things outside of the work that we do is, right?
Right. That resolve, right? You've done a 48-hour fast, so it's unlikely that you're going to get hangry and throw a hissy fit in traffic just because your lunch's an hour late.
That's right.
Which means you're not going to break up your peace of mind because somebody cut you off and, reduce the chances of having those kinds of outbursts, which ruin your day, so to speak. And then you compound those over a lifetime, and it becomes a monumental benefit, right? So all of those things, they compound. All of those little improvements, the continuous improvement, the Kaizen, which is how the Japanese were able to overtake the Americans in the 70s in the auto industry. I don't know if you know that story, but the father of quality assurance, was going to the U.S. auto industry saying, "Hey, these car qualities, they need help. You guys have a lot of cars that are, have a lot of breakdowns and have bad quality cars that are coming off your production line." And they just laughed them out of the room because they own the market. They didn't, quality wasn't the priority necessarily. But the Japanese, they embraced it, and they call this concept called Kaizen, Kaizen, and the concept is continuous improvement. That's the direct translation of it. And so they continually improve one little bit every time, one little bit every time, one little bit every time. That's why the Japanese quality used to be junk. It was worse than what we consider Chinese. Like later on, 20 years later, we were thinking, oh, Chinese stuff, the quality is junk. But the Japanese quality was considered junk before the 70s. Anything that you got from Japan in the auto industry, they didn't measure up. But once they took that continuous improvement, the Kaizen mentality, then they started really overtaking the U.S. auto industry. And the U.S. auto industry had to basically clean up their act in order to stay competitive. But it's taken a long time, and I don't think they've ever fully recovered, right? I don't think like the Japanese quality for these, I don't know, I guess the high-end cars too now, but for the inexpensive cars, if you wanted back in, I don't know how much cars cost now, but back in the day, if you got a $15,000 Japanese car versus a $15,000 American car, the $15,000 Japanese car was still running 200,000 miles later. The Toyota Corollas were running for like 1 million miles. And, the Ford Escort was falling apart at 30,000 miles. So that's the continuous improvement, the Kaizen. And this mentality of a 48-hour fast, for example, or any fast, any amount of fasting, it kind of improves your mentality so that you're not falling apart as soon as your cafe latte is late at Starbucks. They forgot your order. You're not saying, "Oh my God," just relax. It's okay. Either skip it or wait 5 more minutes. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it changes, and just going back to martial arts and fasting and anything that we challenge ourselves on, it changes you, and it's like you said, it's that continuous improvement. It's challenging ourselves is challenging ourselves for growth. That's why we challenge ourselves. It's to grow, is to do something. I mean, it's why you take a class, right? You did all these online classes and you printed out the certificates. There's a reason for that. You challenged yourself for this growth and you wanted to see the growth. And I love that you printed them out. So all of that is so vital to this conversation that we're having. And I want to go into a little bit more of the challenge, because then you challenged yourself again. And it was in terms of having this business where you have all these people that are willing and offering loans and money, and you turned it down. And it was, again, to challenge yourself and, of course, to stay within your integrity. Eventually, you took a little bit of money and you were able to do something with it. I'm just interested in understanding what you were able to do and where you were able to go after all of that. So now you took the loans, you paid it back and everything, and then now we're moving into that partnership conversation. What did that start looking like, and how did you find, I mean, you spoke a little bit about it earlier on, but kind of just unpacking it a little bit further, how did you start getting into the mindset of potentially having a partner, potentially having an investor, and all of that?
Yeah, well, I still don't have a partner.
Right.
So, what happened is Frederick, who I had hired to basically bring automation into SalesX, he was the one and only Google AdWords evangelist. It was kind of that title never existed before Frederick, and it doesn't exist after Frederick. He's the one Google AdWords evangelist, and he's the kind of guy that's both technical, extremely technical, and business minded. He has like an engineering degree from Stanford. Is originally from Belgium. Really cool guy. And through those 10 years at Google, he spoke with a lot of really large clients at Google. And he was able to explain all of this technical stuff to all the techies on behalf of Google across the world. And so it was a really good match for us. We were both, I was part of this marketing advisory board for a local university, Menlo University. And there was another board member, was one of the VPs at Google, who introduced me to Frederick. So this thing about like Toastmasters or other networking opportunities, I did that, right? For the first 5-6 years at SalesX, every Thursday morning at 7 a.m., I was at Silicon Valley BNI, the Business Network International, where you're sitting there and you're doing kind of networking with like 50 other people. Each one of them has their own, it's just one line of business for each one. So a lot of networking in the early days. And so this was another opportunity through the networking, the meeting with Frederick. And so then when he started with SalesX, we basically took the accounts that we were managing for him, and we saw how much those accounts were bringing in, and we gave most of that money back to him as his salary, plus some shares at Google. But then his contribution was on the technical side. Because of Frederick, I was able to attract Emmanuel to my business, and Emmanuel is the other person that owns some shares in SalesX, some significant shares in SalesX. But he was attracted because he knew Frederick. He's like, oh, okay, Frederick is their CTO, so I want to work there. And so what that ended up giving us is somebody that is fully skilled on the sales side, and then somebody that's really skilled on the production side, right? So you have every company, you have the demand side and you have the supply side, right? So if you're able to have two people equally competent at the head of each one of these sides, the demand side is anything that's dealing with prospects, sales, marketing, business development, strategic alliances, partnerships, anything like that. Anything that's people haven't signed the contract with you. And then supply side is once they sign the contract, who's going to do the fulfillment, the maintenance, make sure the quality is there, the reporting, the growth, all of that. That's all the supply side. So if you're able to have somebody running demand and somebody running supply, that's two hands that make a clapping sound, in my opinion, right? You have, if you're just one person trying to do both, then that's what takes 5 years to run up, because you have to, basically my early people at SalesX, they were just, what do they used to call them? Like a ragtag band of bandits. I mean, these people, they didn't have that many skills or job experience. I had to teach them everything. But now I have people at SalesX that have been with me for 8-9 years. The newest guys that are still pretty involved with clients, we have interns that come in later, but from our core team, our newest guy has been around for 5 years. So we don't micromanage people. We're a really KPI driven environment. So key performance indicators for our clients, we walk them through determining those, and then we have systems that track those on a dashboard. So we're looking at everything all at once, and as soon as things start, if everything is looking good, everything is green. If things start slipping, they turn yellow. If they're really in deep trouble, they turn red. And then people know. It's like, oh, why is this account going into yellow? Let me get to it, boom. So because everything is really KPI driven, we don't micromanage our staff at all. I have a guy that has been with me for 7 years, and he's getting his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. And he started as a white belt because I told him, I said, hey, man, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really fun. You should start. And to have that kind of dedication, you need to put in a bunch of hours. And to put in those kinds of hours in that 6-7 years with a full-time job, you need to have a flexible job. And that's what we provide. And that's why he's able to do that. So anyway, where were we? We were just talking about.
Well, I'll bring this back for you, and I love. Hey, look, that's what this podcast is all about. Just so you know, and our audience knows, and our audience knows this as well. This podcast is all about a conversation that sometimes goes down a rabbit hole, and it's my job to bring us back because I enjoy the rabbit hole. I enjoy the ride, and so do our listeners. We all want to. I think that. Information these days needs to be both informative and entertaining. And while you might not find too much entertainment out of learning about someone's black belt, I think the journey there is very entertaining, and I appreciate that. So no worries there. I'm interested in the whole KPI aspect because I just launched a program. So I just launched under Michael Esposito Inc. It's called Sales Mindset Mastery Program. And I actually pitched a program as not your traditional sales tactics in terms of going through KPIs and going through opening and closing a sale. I focus more on some of the things that you actually opened with and spoke about in terms of mindset and yoga and getting into the right place and overcoming challenges and all this. I focus more there. But what's important for me to understand, and I have some hands-on experience understanding KPIs because of where I was previous to owning Den10, I'm interested in understanding KPIs from your level and from what people buy into when you're speaking KPI. And if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on that, on what that process looks like and what your clients are looking for when they're, going through this KPI journey with you.
Sure, you bet. So for search engine marketing, for any kind of internet marketing, where it's really data heavy, it's really easy to fall into the trap of looking at the wrong KPIs, looking at the wrong metrics, looking at metrics that seemingly are amazing, but they're not really the thing that you need. So a really good litmus test for figuring out if a metric is the correct metric for you or for your company or for your business is to see, is it adding to the dollar sign in the bottom of your bank account, or is it not adding to that dollar sign? Okay, if it's adding to the dollar sign, it's the right metric. Otherwise, it's not the right metric. So what's an example of that? So in the Google, in the search engine marketing world, a lot of agencies, they talk about clicks and click prices, the cost per clicks, or number of clicks, or impressions, how many impressions you got, how many new people you got looking at your stuff, or how many people clicked on it, how many visitors you had, how often ads are being clicked on. And there's tons, and then all of these have acronyms. There's a million and one acronym. There are a million and one acronyms in this industry. Okay. The one that I really like and I use as the kind of first and foremost, I mean, if you were only given the choice for one single acronym, what would that acronym be? I would say that acronym is cost per closed lead. Cost per closed lead, which is CPCL. So there's cost per acquisition, CPA, there's cost per lead, CPL, there's, cost per click, CPC, there's click-through rate, CTR, there's all kinds of stuff. But the one that really adds to your bank account is the CPCL. For example, you might have 5 different lines of business. You're selling home insurance, you're selling car insurance, you're selling personal, umbrella insurance, business insurance, whatever it might be. And you're getting leads for all of these lines of business. And you're saying, wow, as long as my cost per lead is $50, I'm okay. So your agency is bringing in, they set the KPI at a CPA, a cost per acquisition of $50, and then they manage to that KPI. They're like, all right, well, Michael wants cost per lead at $50, so we'll set $50 and we'll go from that. And then they're going after these 5 different lines of business. Call it, line of business 1 through 5. And they're sending you leads for each one of these lines of business. Well, what happens when you get the lead? As your agent, are you able to then close that lead? Yes or no? Yes, I closed it. No, I didn't close it. If you closed it, did you close it for kind of the good size contract, a small contract, a medium contract, a large contract, or a giant contract? Which kind of contract was it? Was it an A lead? Was it a B lead? Was it a C lead? Or was it an F lead? Okay. So those kinds of things, they can only come through if you're tracking those leads all the way through to their fruition, to their completion, and then reporting back your findings back into the Google Ads system. And then you're able to then max out your A leads. And then if there's any money left over, you go after the B leads. And then if there's any money left over still, then you go after the C leads. And then you throw the E, D, and F leads out for the competitors. So they can have some leads and they think they're succeeding, but they're really not, because you're doing the math on it. And that's possible, actually. That's one of the benefits of PPC. It's not easy, but it's doable, because every single click that you buy has an ID attached to it, a unique identifier attached to it. So that unique ID is called, in Google's case, it's called GCLID. It's a Google Click ID. So if your agency is passing the GCLID to the lead, and then you have made room in your CRM or in your spreadsheet or whatever, however it is that you're managing the leads for that Gclid, and then you're following that lead all the way through to its fruition, and then you take that final win loss, and then how good was it? Was it good or was it bad? If it was good, was it an A lead, a B lead, a C lead? What was it? How good was it? Was it amazing? And then you could take that, feed that back into the Google Ads, and then we can go back and we can say, oh, okay, A leads for Michael came from this ad group, and these were the keywords that triggered those ads, and these were the search terms. It's called converting search terms. So we hear in this industry, we hear keyword, 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 but what we don't hear is search term, search term, search term. But that's what we should be hearing, because the search terms is what people actually type into the Google search box. On the Google homepage, the thing that you type in, that's called a search term. And the search term, the system sees it, and then it tries to match it closely with a keyword, and then triggers the ad associated with it. Well, we can look and see how many people are typing in that search term, and then how many times your ads are showing up every time they type in that search term. That's your impression shares for those search terms. So if they're typing in XYZ search term and your impression share is at 10%, and those are your for A leads, well, hell, man, before you spend a dime anywhere else, you got to take that impression share to like 85%, 80%, which is where kind of the marginal diminishing returns is hitting at 75, 80%. But there's no point spending a dime on anything else at all unless all of those A lead search terms are hitting at 80% impression share. But that takes skill to do that, and it takes teamwork. So you'll have to track all this stuff, report it back. I mean, there's automation that we put in, but you have to track it in your CRM, or you have to track it on a spreadsheet and then upload the spreadsheet at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the month, whatever it is. But the point is that now you can calculate CPCL. You could say, all right, the cost per closed lead for these A leads was like $300, but they closed $5,000 contracts. And the cost for closed lead for these F leads was $15, not $300, but they didn't close anything. So it doesn't make any sense to mash these up and then get an average and then set your metric as that average number. That makes no sense whatsoever, but that's exactly what's going on every day and night, 365. So the idea that all leads are created equal is just outrageous, because they're not, right? You can break down leads by class, and you could say, these leads are awesome. I need as many of these as I can afford. And a lot of times what that means is you'll end up paying through the nose for the cost per clicks, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm lowering your cost per click. And it's like, why? Are those bringing me the A leads? What are the A lead clicks? Let's max out at any cost.
Right.
We could buy those A lead clicks at any cost. It doesn't matter what the costs are,
because they convert. That scenario was very helpful, and also kind of painful for me, because I spent a lot on Google AdWords and did not get the results that we had hoped for. So both helpful in understanding KPI and painful from personal experience. But just to kind of go ahead.
I was just saying that that's a really common outcome, and especially with all the automation that Google's provided. Google spent hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on automation tools that they've then added into the Google Ads platform for free. They're like, here, our advertiser, we'll give you all this automation for free. You love it. You can compete now. And it's true. You can compete. The problem is, let me put it in a simpler way. The problem is, imagine you're trying to sell your house.
Okay.
And you have 3 people bidding for the house. That's great. I got 3 bids. Now imagine if you have 300 people bidding for that house or 30 people bidding for that house. You're going to sell the house for way more money. And that's what this automation, the free automation that Google's bringing in, that's what it's doing to the Google Ads platform. It's bringing up the floor for the keywords, for the bids. So people, now you're not able to succeed at all. Like before, you were up against 3 other people. And so there was 1 out of 4 chance that you got an A lead at random because it's 4 people bidding. So
Right.
all the leads are going into those 4. So you got a 1 out of 4 chance that you're gonna get an A lead. Now it's 300 people bidding, so your chances are diminished. You cannot afford to make those kinds of mistakes at all, or else you get the Google vacuum, which is what you got.
Yep. I like the Google vacuum. Yeah. Yep. I definitely got the Google vacuum. So to kind of just bring this together for everyone, and just these are my simple notes on this, and just correct me if I didn't capture this. But when we think about KPIs, our key performance indicators, some of what I gained from what you said here, the big things in there are tracking the results of what's happening, tracking what's happening in the marketplace, and then what is the conversion from those tracking. But for you guys, and what I'm learning here in terms of your KPIs and what people should be looking at is it's not just the conversion, but then what is the profit on that conversion, and then focusing on obviously the higher profit item that you're selling or whatever it is, focusing on that. So just breaking it down, the equation I came up with was pretty much what you find is when you focus on that, then you're finding the need, which then all you need to do as the salesperson, whatever you're selling to everybody out there, is just find a solution to that need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's taking it one step further, which is backtracking what the market has available and then seeing what product you could fit into that availability, which is a big deal, right? We had one client, and we were calculating cost per closed leads for their different divisions, and one division, their cost per closed lead was like, they were doing these annual contracts that were 50, 60 grand annual contracts. So companies paying 4 or 5 grand a month for these contracts. And their cost per closed leads, their average cost per closed leads were like 10 grand, 9 grand, because they got a lot of leads. People make calls, and then finally a lead closed. And by then the cost per closed lead was really high. Well, when you broke down the cost per closed lead by division, you saw that like one division, the cost per closed lead was 5 grand. And the other 4 divisions, for 3 of them, the cost per closed lead was 10 grand, double. And the 4th one, the cost per closed lead was 15 grand, triple. So I was telling them, your impression shares, this is getting way into the weeds, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll finish it up quick. I was saying that your impression shares for these lowest cost per closed leads, they're only running at like 18%. Why are you spending money on these other divisions? And the guy was saying, well, because there are fiefdoms. I mean, fiefdoms, that's the word I'm using. But it was basically saying that all of those divisions need leads, right? So if this is a CMO I was talking to, Chief Marketing Officer. So if he decides that, hey, this division can really become profitable, like can really blow up, can really make a lot of money really fast, and at the cost of those other divisions not getting that budget, then those other guys would probably get him fired. So there's that like politics, internal politics. So that's a decision for the CEO really to say, of course, that's a giant company with lots of funding and this and that. But for smaller companies, and you're the entrepreneur, you're the solopreneur, or you're the startup founder, and you're still managing the company, that's an easy decision. You could say, oh, I'm selling these 5 things, but I could get really A leads for this one thing all the time, probably for another, 800%. of how much business I'm getting right now. So let me focus on that for now. Let me max that out first, then go after the B leads. There's no point going after A leads, B leads, C leads if you have an opportunity to go to get a lot more A leads, in my opinion. It's just, it doesn't make any business sense.
Right.
But of course, not everything makes sense when you're in a big business because people are fighting for fiefdom, fighting to keep their stuff. And there's internal politics that you cannot ignore.
Which I could only assume led you to go surfing for a long period of time.
Right.
Which is incredible. You have a very unique managing style in that you don't micromanage. And I say that that's unique. I mean, I know that there's a lot of others out there who don't micromanage, and I think that that's terrific for wherever people are. I'm just and you brought up about how you're able to do that not micromanage. You brought that up with obviously the person who was able to get their black belt. I'm just interested in also, again, I'm always interested in the mindset of things, of the why. Why was it important for you to have a company to where you don't need to micromanage? Why was that part of when you developed the employee handbook, call it, that part of the employee handbook would mean that you would be a hands-off manager and owner?
It's less as to why in terms of business and more as to why in terms of my personality. So because I'm a big student of Eastern philosophy, and I'm a big student of mindfulness and so on, I have taken some learnings that I've had over the years to heart, and I've operated my business and my life based on those learnings. One of them specifically that addresses this one is from The Way of Life, Lao Tzu's Way of Life. If you look at this book, you can see it's falling apart, but you could see that the date on it is 1993. So since 1993, I've read this book hundreds of times. And there's a verse in here that says, the best leader is the one that people don't hear. And the best leader is the one that when people actually win, at the end, they say, we did it ourselves.
That's powerful.
So that's the way I've tried to run my business, where when people are having successes, when they're winning, they're saying we did it ourselves. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's another thing, because that can backfire, right? You could hire people and they could be slackers, and it could backfire. And that's happened to me plenty of times. The thing about it is that even if they're slackers, I let them slack. And that's another teaching from Lao Tzu, which is to say, if you're good enough, then you believe the liars. If you yourself are good enough of a father, if you're good enough of a son, then you believe the liars. And so I let people know, I'm like, there was this one guy, this is quite a few years ago, it's like 2016, but he wasn't working. He wasn't working. And I would let him know, I'm like, I know what's happening, buddy. I wouldn't tell him specifically what's happening, but I was like, I know what's happening, man. I mean, I'm not stupid. I know exactly what's happening. Okay, just take care of it. And like in a very cryptic way, I was just saying to him, and what happens, that gives those people opportunity to get their dignity back. Because if somebody is slacking off, they're losing their dignity. If they're charging you to do something and they're not doing it, they're losing their own integrity. They're losing their own dignity. They have self-hate because of that, whether they realize it or not. So I give them the opportunity to snap out of that mode and do the right thing or leave on their own without me having to fire them. And that's the way I've always run Salsex. And that usually what happens. They either step up or they leave. And I don't have to deal with it. And yeah, sometimes I have to take a loss by paying them extra, paying them salary for work that they're not doing for a few months. But eventually it's very rare where I have to say, I'm sorry, things aren't working out, you have to leave, because either they're left on their own or they step up to the plate on their own.
I have to get that book, the Way of Life, Lao Tzu, and
yeah,
of course,
this it's really tough to read. Like I've gotten 8 different translations of it, and this one is by Witter Bynner. And it's for me. For me, this one is the only one that I could really relate to, even though I've gotten a bunch of different ones.
Got it.
But yeah, it's 81 verses, and it really speaks to me. And I've basically arranged my life around that mentality.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of why I do things or don't do things the way I do or don't do them.
And I love the way that you speak, the way that I do or don't do them. It's such a Lao Tzu, right? Because everybody knows him for The Art of War. So I hadn't heard of this book here.
That's Sun Tzu.
Oh, okay. I got the name wrong.
Yeah, at The Art of War is Sun Tzu.
Oh, you know what? Sun Tzu is The Art of War.
Yeah,
I guess.
And Lao Tzu is the father of Taoism. He's the Chinese sage from 5,000 years ago.
Lao Tzu is the founder of Taoism. Okay, Taoism is maybe where I'm confusing Lao Tzu, because Dr. Wayne Dyer used to speak a lot about Lao Tzu. Am I right on that?
So Wayne Dyer has written a book where he's interpreted each one of those 81 verses.
Okay.
And his is one of those translations that I actually do like a lot, because he goes into it and explains it. But this translation is written in poem form, and I love poetry. So it's just like I read it and I dig it. Really,
it's easy to read then because it's more rhythmic.
Well, maybe I've read it like 500 times, so maybe it's easy to read now. But it's still philosophy, so you still have to think about it.
Yeah, I love that philosophy, and I love the whole. I want to just go back to because I had a hard time understanding it at first when you first said it, but as you started breaking it down, I understood it. So I just want to go back to it. Is believing the liar, and so when you broke it down in that, it made a lot more sense to me. Of like, you know what, if someone's going to lie to you, rather than challenging them on their lie and saying no, that's not true, and here's why, you're just like, okay, sure, I believe you. What comes to mind for me on this is how do you deal with the people who are saying to you, hey, Joe, listen, that guy's lying to you or that lady's lying to you. Like, well, you got to do something. Why don't you do something? How do you respond to them?
I do something. I do something. I tell them that I realize what's going on without insulting them.
Okay. So that is the action.
I made it abundantly clear that I know that they're lying to me without calling them a liar.
And
I make it abundantly clear so that they know. And that works, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm an idealist, but for me, it's worked.
Yeah.
For me, it's really worked.
I mean,
over the years.
Go ahead.
Yeah, over the years, people, they just, if they're not the right people, they just leave.
Yeah, I mean, I buy into that philosophy. I would say I'm very similar in that sense, and that's why I'm able to have such a small company and have actually a team that operates, because I just trust that they're working. I trust them. They know that. We have 2 team meetings a week. We meet Monday mornings and Thursday mornings. And outside of that, they're typically the ones who are touching base with me. I touch base with them and just say, have a great weekend, and thanks, and I appreciate you. Like, that's typically my text messages to them. But more often than not, it's them calling me and saying, hey, I'm working on this. Can you help me, or something like that, which I'm always available for. But I'm not checking in on them to do that. And part of why I asked you that question was because that is some of the response that I had gotten on some previous employees of like, why aren't you doing this? Why don't you do that to them? Why don't you tell them this? And I'm like, I mean, I know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing. And eventually, I really am like, I guess, similar to you in that sense. I'm like, eventually, they're going to get hung up on it. They're going to have to do something about it. And they both did. One, I did have to ask to leave because that person was on salary and I needed to clear up the space there at that point. But the other person was simple. It was like, all right, here's an option. You could be a contractor for us. And it was like, but why? Right. And I'm like, your life's going to be easier. You're not going to have to tell me about all this other stuff. You don't have to tell me anything as a contractor. You could just send the lead in and then boom, we're done.
You have your own hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that. So I found that verse that talks about believing the liars. I don't know if you want to get into that right now. It's very short.
Please, yeah, go ahead.
So it's number 49. It's verse number 49. And Wayne Dyer's book, actually, he puts a chapter heading to these verse numbers. Wayne Dyer does. And I actually wrote his chapter heading for this verse number. It's called Living Beyond Judgment. So here's the verse. It says, a sound man's heart is not shut within itself, but is open to other people's hearts. I find good people good, and I find bad people good if I am good enough. I trust men of their word, and I trust liars if I am true enough. I feel the heartbeats of others above my own if I'm enough of a father, enough of a son.
You mentioned that you wrote the heading for Dr. Wayne Dyer.
The Wayne Dyer's book. So the Lao Tzu, it doesn't have like a verse name, right? It's just a verse number. So this is number 49, right? This verse was number 49 in Lao Tzu's The Way of Life, out of I think it's 81. Out of 81. This is number 49. But what Wayne Dyer did is he gave each one of those numbers a chapter heading, kind of the verse heading. And for this heading, he called it Living Beyond Judgment. So in that line where it says, I trust men of their word, and I trust liars if I'm true enough. Somebody's lying. They know they're lying. Unless they're lying, then, I mean, if they're delusional, psychotic, that's a different story. But
right.
If somebody's lying, they can only live with themselves with that lie for so long.
For so long, yeah. Yeah.
And I'd rather have them step up, and perform to their promise and regain their integrity. And that's how I buy their loyalty. Rather than, kick him out and buy the resentment. I would rather they step up.
And then you just said there too, which I think is so huge, is that's how you buy their loyalty. I think, so often as leaders, we're looking for respect and we're looking for loyalty, and people are asking for, searching for loyal employees and wondering, how do we gain loyalty? How do we gain loyal employees? Of course, customers as well. But how do we gain loyal employees? That's the starting point. And right there, I love that you use the word dignity, is that you give them their dignity back by just believing, by letting them know what's real, what's going on, but allowing them to believe the lie. I absolutely love that. I want to just transition into mindfulness here because it's in the same realm of what you're talking about. But you also said that you use mindfulness as part of your management style. And I'm interested in how you use that with your team.
Yeah, I mean, mindfulness, for somebody that's kind of has an aggressive personality, like not aggressive, but assertive, right? We've been through, we come from sales background, right? We know to excite people, listen to 1 million sales audiobooks, sales books, read them, sales training. I used to joke that through Oracle, I got a second master's degree in sales because they spend this is back in 2000, they spent between 2000 and 2004, they spent $35,000 putting me through different sales courses and so on. plus the martial arts background, plus kind of the speaking, right, Toastmasters background, not shy from communicating, and so on. So it's really easy for me to overwhelm people who don't have those kinds of backgrounds, especially like engineering type people that they're more introverted, they may be shy, maybe even shy to even get on camera, soft spoken, this and that. I could easily just overrun their opinions or make them feel like if they spoke up, I could shut it down in an embarrassing way, something like that. So I have to be extremely cognizant of that. And most of the time, bite my tongue. Most of the time, don't express the first thing that's coming to my mind. And a lot of times, just don't say anything at all, as much as possible. Because as the head of a company, as the leader of a company, when you say something, people are like, oh, Joe said X, and it's like, okay, so if it's wrong, I expect you to shut it down. If it's not going to work, I expect you to just say, dude, you're dreaming. That's never going to work. And these are the reasons. But people don't say that to the head of the company. And that's where you have to be mindful. You have to be careful what you say, because a lot of times people take that as like the word, and it's not the word. I'm treating them like peers, but they're not treating me like a peer. So I have to be mindful of that fact. If I'm not mindful of that, then we could go down paths that don't succeed. We could try stuff that are a waste of time. And it's known that it's a waste of time by my people, but they're not saying it because I made the suggestion. And so it's better if I don't speak about those kinds of environments. And even if I have something, an opinion that's really strong, I might write a couple of lines in an IM to their manager and say, what about something like this? Would that work? And then he will bring it up, and then they're more comfortable debating it with him than they would ever be debating it with me. So if I've given 4 guys to this person and he's managing them and we're all in a meeting, I shouldn't be directly talking to those guys because it's gonna freeze them. It's not a power play. It's right. Just I don't want to freeze them because they're looking at me like everything Joe says has to be, and it's not the case.
They have that intimidation.
They're the ones that are hands-on in the account, so they have a better sense. I'm just making a suggestion because I'm being extroverted, I'm being loud, I'm being whatever. So I have to be very cognizant of that and just bite my tongue.
Yeah, because they're intimidated because of your position and your role in the company, which is obvious with any company. Is the owner says something, the CEO says something, people are like, okay, that's probably what we got to do. And then again, living into the philosophy, the Eastern philosophy of what you just said earlier, where I am the manager says it to them, and then it's them working with the manager, and it's them seeing their own victory to that point. So I love that, how it kind of like ties back together as well. And then of course, not wanting to overwhelm people with all of your ideas and all of your strategies and all of what you're digging into. I remember Gary Vee talking or saying this as a response to one of his Q&As, where somebody asked Gary Vee, they said, what do you say to the employee who's not willing to work as hard as you? And it was something along those lines. And he said, nothing. He goes, I don't expect my employees to work as hard as me.
Right.
And I'm bringing that back to you and what what we're talking about here, because you're toiling, you're playing, and I know this because I'm doing this too. It's like when we start something, a business or anything, there's almost never a time that we're not thinking about the business or how we can improve it or learn or grow. And so of course, when somebody comes to us with something, we have 10 answers for them. Whereas for our managers or our employees, They're here for a 9 to 5, and that's good. We need people like that in our lives. I'm looking for more people like that in my business. But that means that they have less answers. And so when they have less answers, we certainly, as the owners of the company and the founders of these companies, we overwhelm them. And so it's important to have that dialogue through different channels. And I really love how you brought that up, of bringing that dialogue in through different channels. And going back now to mindfulness, and I want to go to meditation with you, because part of that self-control that you're speaking to, as you said, you're assertive, aggressive, and myself as well. And so many people feel that they can't change who they were. They can't change their history of being an aggressive personality, an overspoken, outspoken personality, the head of the class, class clown, which is sometimes what the title is. And they can't change that. And I certainly have changed that through meditating. And I'm interested in your meditation and your practice and how that's changed your life.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I found that verse before we move to meditation. I found that verse. It's also a short one about the leadership.
Please,
if you're up for that.
Of course.
So it's number 17, verse number 17. It says, "A leader is best when people barely know that he exists. Not so good when they obey and acclaim him. Worst when they despise him. Fail to honor people, they fail to honor you. But of a good leader who talks little, when his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will all say, 'We did this ourselves.'"
Yeah. I'm gonna buy this book for all of for my whole team.
Yeah, I mean, it's
incredible.
Over the years, I've tried reading this for people, and people, it takes time to think and absorb this information, so I don't expect that anybody that you give it to, they're gonna gobble it up.
Well, you gotta break it down.
Yeah. So it's just the way hopefully it's the way that I continue to live. It's the method that I use. And it's funny enough, it's called the way of life. So in terms of meditation, I learned Reiki. So Reiki is kind of the equivalent of, so there's the yoga part of it, which is associated with the breath, which is pranayama. And when you do pranayama, you bring a focus to your mind because you're controlling your breath. Your breath, like you can not eat for 48 hours. You'll be fine. You're not going to die. Okay. You can not drink for a day and you'll be severely hurt. But it might take a day or two for you to, but with breath, you need every single breath. You can hold your breath for a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes if you're a deep sea diver or whatever, slow down your heart rate, you're a yogi, whatever it might be. But then you're done. It's over. So the breath, we're doing something like 21,000 breaths, I think, a day, or it's 18,000 or 21,000, some outrageously high number of breaths that we do every day. And a lot of times, everything can be controlled with the breath. Our anxiety levels, a lot of diseases are associated with shallow breathing, hyperventilation. Hyperventilation hurts the amount of carbon dioxide that you get in your blood. And the carbon dioxide is opening the vessels. It serves as opening of the blood vessels, so you get more blood through to your extremities and everywhere. So the breath is really important. So even if somebody's like, "Oh, I can't meditate, man. I tried a bajillion times. I can't meditate. I don't want to meditate." Even if they say that, I say, okay, that's fine. Don't meditate. But do some breath stuff. Controlled breathing. Okay. 4-count breathing. Okay. There's there's a guy in our academy. He's kind of overweight, and he's a new guy. He's just started a few months ago, and I could hear him breathe so hard, because Brazilian jiu-jitsu is hard. So, and I sat down. I said, his name is Lion. I said, Lion, man, let's have a chat. Okay, I want you to download this kind of app. That's a metronome app. Okay.
Oh, so it's
And
like a piano metronome. Yep.
yeah, and on a 4 count, I want you to inhale and exhale. So inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4. And I want you to do that for 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. And this is like 2 weeks ago. And the other day, he was doing rounds, he was doing rolls, and I couldn't hear him gas out like that. And I was like, afterwards, I said, what's going on, man? You seem to not gas out today. Because he used to like do like a little bit during warm-ups. He was like, it's like, dude, calm down, So even if people don't meditate, they could take up some pranayama yogic breathing practices. As simple as a 4 count, even that one, even if they just do that one right there, which is the simplest one, there's nobody on the planet that can't inhale on a 4 count and exhale on a 4 count. And you don't even need to hold. You don't hold at the top. You don't hold at the bottom. You just inhale 2, 3, 4, exhale 2, 3, 4. That's it. You do that, you automatically start calming yourself. You're meditating. You're adjusting your breathing, and you're just a better all around, more efficient person. So that's pranayama. That's the yogic breathing techniques, and I do the 12 count. I could do like the 12 count for 10 minutes, which is only 2 breaths. Like 12 count, 12 inhale, 12 exhale, that's 24. So it's almost only 2 breaths per minute. Okay. So you're slowing down your breathing, you're slowing down the number of breaths you're taking.
I love breath work. I do that during my meditation. Is I do breath work, and I like to do. I personally enjoy. It's a strange thing to enjoy. I enjoy holding my breath. It's like I literally do the breathing count that you're talking about, and similar ones with breathe and holds and short holds, in order to work my way up to being able to do a really long hold. And I get into. I'm like, I'm just going to do one more. Like I'm meditating, and I'm like, I just want to do one more. It's like it's like a dopamine rush for me.
Right. I mean, the ultimate goal for the pranayama, where the truly adept yogis, the way they do it, the guys that are sitting in the caves, they do 4 count in, 14 count hold, and 8 count out. So, I mean, that's really tough to do.
Yeah.
I can do one of those, maybe, 2 of those, maybe. But anybody can do 4 count in, 4 count out.
Well,
and then Reiki. Yeah.
I was going to say, after this, I'm going to be trying those.
I can send you a sheet that teaches you how to work up to those numbers in about a year.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. There's a sheet that you could work up to that.
Please.
Actually,
I'm also interested if you could just share what the app was that you pulled up, just so that our listeners, if
that's just a metronome.
Just a metronome app.
Metronome app, yeah.
Just
a
download
free metronome app.
Just whatever one on there. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's get into the Reiki. We don't need to spend much time there then.
Yeah, it's just a free metronome app. The Reiki is kind of the qi. In the Chinese, they call it qi. Everybody's heard about that. They do qigong and like tai chi, the energy manipulation. And the Indians, they call it pranayama, and the Japanese, they call it Reiki. And Reiki is actually, the root of Reiki goes back to this energy medicine, which I've read that it goes back to the method that Christ was using for his healing. So there are these symbols that you visualize and you like draw them. This is going to get a little esoteric.
I love it. I love it.
On the roof of your mouth with the tip of your tongue as you're visualizing them. And you say them in your head. You don't say them out loud. And then these symbols, they trigger like this, the universal energy to just channel through you. And when I get that energy, I instantly fall asleep. So when people are like, oh, I couldn't sleep, or I woke up, I couldn't fall back asleep, I have a really hard time. Like, I have to be compassionate, obviously. I do my best to be compassionate. Yet I have a really hard time relating to it because as soon as I do Reiki, instantly I'm asleep. So for me, even to get through one cycle of Reiki, so Reiki, you have level 1, level 2, and level 3, and each level has 3 of these symbols. Except for the third level, you only use 2 of them. You don't use the third one because that's for transmitting Reiki to another person. But long story short, in order to go through the 3 levels of Reiki, it takes about 3 minutes. It doesn't take long because it's just 8 symbols effectively, right? And you're just drawing them and you're visualizing them and you're saying them in your head. For that 3 minutes, a lot of times I fall asleep so many times that, like, in the mornings when I do it, when I'm waking up, it takes me like 45 minutes to just complete the one cycle, just because I've fallen asleep so many times. Unless I'm, sitting up in the daylight doing it in a seated position. But if I'm laying down in bed trying to do Reiki, it's like a light switch. So there's that meditation that I do day and night. And then the pranayama meditation. And then in Nichiren Buddhism, which is something I practice, there's a chant. It's based on the Lotus Sutra. And that chant is basically is said that you could get enlightenment in one lifetime by just chanting that one chant. And so that's a really cool chant. It's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. You might have come across it, or you might come across it in the future.
Could you say it again a little slower for us?
It's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So when you chant it, it becomes kind of like a hum. It becomes like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
And what does it mean?
It's so in Buddhism, in the Lotus Sutra, they say that the cause and effect, which is the source of everything that happens in life, there's a cause, there's an effect. They could happen simultaneously when you chant this. So the direct translation is something like acknowledging the power of the Lotus Sutra is what it is, the direct translation. But effectively, when you're chanting this chant, your belief is that you're creating both cause and effect at the same time. So you're melting your karma. Again, it gets esoteric, but effectively, if I say effectively one more time?
Your Toastmasters is kicking in.
Yeah, my Toastmasters training is kicking in. So what happens is, because a human body is mostly made up of water and sound vibrates through water, when you chant this chant, it's affecting all of the water in your body and it's bringing it in sync. So when you chant this chant multiple times in a row, like let's say do 10 minutes of it, 5 minutes of it, then when you're done, you feel completely like everything is in sync.
It's the vibrations that it's creating. The vibrations that it's creating is syncing the water in your body.
Yeah.
That makes really great sense. It's incredible as we go down these paths of mindfulness and self-awareness and all these different religions and beliefs and breathing and yoga and and cultures and how you when you go and we start paying attention to the mind and to the body and our internal organs, we realize that like we can really control a lot of our outcomes through having self mastery,
Yeah.
it's just incredible. And I'm so happy that you were so able to bring all of this to this show today. I certainly was not expecting us to go down this path, but I do know that when we first started talking before we jumped on and you mentioned Buddhism, you said it just in passing, and then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was like, okay, we're going to have some fun today. And fun for me is exactly what we just did there. It's really, really incredible. I love how you are and by the way, you got upset with yourself on saying, what would you say, facilitate, I think it was, or
It's effectively.
effectively. I get on myself because I could hear it all the time. I go, I love how you said, I love how you, and I'm like, I wonder if my listeners probably go, Michael's going to love what he just said. It's kind of my way of transitioning. But anyway, so since you dinged yourself for Toastmasters, I guess I'll ding myself too for my crutch word. But I really do love how you bring this self-awareness, let's just call all of everything that you just talked about there, the Eastern philosophy and everything, this self-awareness into your business, and how you've been able to use that self-awareness in terms of the bootstrapping and overcoming challenges, all the way into growing, into learning and discovering who you are as a business owner, and being able to now have a team of employees and managers who are self-reliant and passing that on to them, because you and I both know that there's no way that they're not learning from this. They may not be absorbing it the same way as you absorb it, but they're learning from it, and they probably carry that into their own lives and all the people that they touch. So it just transcends to so many others. So I really am. I really do love it, because I mean, it's what I try to do in my businesses, and it's the way I try to live my life. And I was writing down the books that you mentioned, and of course they're all going to be in the show notes. We're going to have to put those in there. Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu and the other books, and Dr. Wayne Dyer's books, another great source for me.
And this nature in Buddhism, it's actually pretty prevalent in the US. The organization is called SGI. So the website is sgi-usa.com.
SGI.
And what's distinct about this organization is that it does not have monks. So there's no clergy. So it's just a direct, it's this chanting, and then a lot of study of, they give you material which is very positive and hopeful, and it's all about kind of peer-based, helping overcome difficulties, helping your peers, chanting for them, chanting with them, chanting for yourself. So it's a pretty cool organization. I really like it a lot, and I'm a huge fan of it.
Cool.
So yeah.
And so as I always do, I like to conclude with maybe, and I know we've gone through a few mantras, but a mantra or quote that you live by, and I'm sure that you have many, but maybe your favorite for today.
All right.
And I know you're cycling through all of your favorites.
No, I'm just looking at a mantra that's sitting on my desk. A monk handed this to me like on Pier 39. I don't know if you can see it.
I can, yes. Work smoothly, lifetime peace.
Peace. Just work smoothly, lifetime peace. The idea is, a lot of times we come to a decision and we make a sudden decision about it. And we're like, go, go, go. We're in the West, man. You can't be sitting on your hands. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on, up with it. And a lot of times that's the wrong approach. A lot of times things resolve themselves. A lot of times you don't need to open up a chatterbox about it and panic people. And God knows what ways they start thinking about things that you say. So just if you work smoothly and just calm down, then yeah, lifetime peace. That's the goal.
Fantastic. Yeah, lifetime peace. I mean, for me, I work with a coach, and we've been working through what I want out of life. And I mean, we've come to that answer, that question finally. It's taken a long time of what do I want? You know, when you first get into business, when you first get into coaching, it's like, well, what do you want to accomplish out of this? I want to make 10 times more money. Why do you want to make 10 times? I want to own a Lamborghini. Okay. You know, how are you going to feel when you get all that stuff? All right. And you start realizing some realities of it all, of, you know, does it match my integrity? And then then I went through the transition of, okay, you know, the question is, okay, well, who do you need to be? Who do you need to become for the person you want to be? And the way I had translated that was, well, I need to go buy a new car, and I need to go get suits, and I need to, you know, because that's the person I want to become, is a successful business owner, right? And I've started to realize that all of that, what is the purpose to all of that? And it's essentially my happiness. It's essentially, I just want to be happy. And when you look at it, it's like, and what you're saying, it works smoothly, lifetime peace. I mean, that's it. It's like, we just want to be happy as people. And we work towards all these goals. They're wonderful goals. And I'm sure all these material things are wonderful to have and to own, and they're great experiences. But at the end of the day, it's about the happiness for me, and you know, lifetime peace for you. And so I think that it's such a great mantra to live by. So I appreciate you bringing that to the show today.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. The happiness is internal.
Yeah.
So it's inside all of us. And it's funny, there's this happiness coach in San Francisco, Amy Coget. She said, stay away. She said, don't allow 4 things to impact your happiness: people, places, things, and circumstances. So I've been teaching that to my kids. I say PPTC: people, places, things, and circumstances. Don't let those 4 things affect your happiness. You know, when you look at happiness, if you disconnect it from those 4 things, then the only thing that leaves is just you. It's internal.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, before we wrap, just how can people reach out to you? Of course, as I always say, this will be in the show notes, but just for our audio listeners here, what are your handles and websites that everybody can find you on?
Sure. I mean, you can find me through the SalesX website. And so my email is joe@salesx.com. We offer a free kind of consultation audit. We have this thing called an X audit, where we look at someone's Google Ads account and we do an audit, and then we provide like a slide presentation which serves as their Google Ads business plan. It tells them exactly how their structure is, how it should be, what are the things they're addressing, what are the things they need to address, what are the results that they're getting, and what they're leaving on the table, what their potential is. And so we do that free of charge. And if someone needs us to take a look at their Google Ads account and provide an X audit, then they can just shoot me an email or go through the website and send a note, and we'll take care of it.
Very cool. This has been awesome. And of course, you have a LinkedIn profile. I certainly visited that, so people can find you there as well. Very awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been an amazing experience. Same here. Same here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We covered a lot of esoteric topics as well, which is not typical business chat, but I enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. That's DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den10, you're giving back on a global scale. This episode was produced by Uncle Mike at the iHeart Studios in Poughkeepsie. Special thanks to Lara Rodrian for the opportunity and my team at Michael Esposito Inc.